What, Lonnie, I'm hungry. No, I don't think it's gonna make a mess on my shirt. It's gonna be fine, trust me. Trust me on this. My name is Daniel. I'm the owner and founder of the Raminfard School of Arts. I have been drawing and painting for 40 years and I've owned my studio for 25. And in all that time, I have taught thousands and thousands of students how to paint, and specifically how to paint outdoors. So one of the things that I would like to share with you today is the basic mechanics of everything that you need to take outdoors so that you can get started painting. And I highly recommend doing it in gouache. I've brought with me all the stuff that I would normally bring for when I go painting outdoors. First thing I have in my bag is fixative, which I use frequently when I'm working with gouache. I've got a couple of clips here so that things don't blow away. Some painter's tape, long handled brushes, a value scale, two of my favorite panels to paint on. These are the Aqua panels made by Ampersand. Some paper napkins, a small butcher's tray, which is where I'm gonna have all my paints, scissors, spray bottle to keep my own paints nice and wet, some pencils, palette paper in case I want to cover this, a kneaded eraser, Q-tips for wiping out mistakes, a jar for water, and this box right here, which has all of my paints in it. This white right here, which is an extra large tube, and it's because when you're painting in gouache, you're going to be using this about 4 times more than any other color. Let's get started. So you may be wondering why gouache? And the reason is because gouache for me is a perfect blend between oil, acrylic, and watercolors. It offers all of the benefits with very little drawbacks. I think the most difficult part about gouache is understanding how thick you actually need to keep it. So you're gonna minimize the amount of water that you're adding to it. The other thing that you wanna keep in mind is that you can reactivate it if you are putting paint right back on top of dry paint. And if you rub too much, it'll actually mix. So you want to keep your touch relatively light unless you are in fact trying to reactivate the paint. One of the ways to get around that is to use fixative, which we talk about later in the video. So hopefully this helps give you an understanding as to the process. Let's actually look at the demos. Let's get our board clipped. So now this guy's not going anywhere, it's not moving. Start off with a number 2. And I've got my colors out here. Titanium white, cadmium yellow light, yellow ochre, cadmium red light, quinacridone violet, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, burnt umber. So the question is where do you actually set up to paint? Well, the best way I know how to do it is to actually use your fingers. And just like a director of a movie, you're gonna close one eye, you're gonna have your fingers like this, and you're gonna look to see through that viewfinder what makes the most amount of sense. It doesn't necessarily have to be an exact copy of what you're painting. You can put together 2 scenes if you want, but try to look for something that is really interesting to you and focus solely on that. Let's also talk about what we use to hold our canvas. So there's a couple of different things, but one of them is a pochade, where the surface down here is your palette, and then this thing right here, which holds your canvas. And what I brought with me is my Studio Easel. Now, the reason why I like this particular Studio Easel is that it folds up completely as one piece, this guy right here. And it opens up to almost any height and any width. So especially if I'm on unstable ground, this guy is great. So I have found this to be one of the most useful. We sell them here at the studio. You could also get it online. The name of the game here is to simplify. It is so easy to make this way more complicated than it needs to be. The only thing that I'm interested in the beginning phases are just simple shapes. So the first thing I'm gonna do is kind of frame this tree here that goes along the side, and it goes up like so. There is some foliage. This seems to go across. It gets a little wider as it comes towards the end. Then I have my yellow grass that kind of rolls across right about here. I love this rock right here. Nice little line right here. Leaves that kind of hit in this space. Darker trees right about there too. And there we go. So I'm starting off with white and a little bit of my cerulean. I'm gonna go a little thinner here. Now the mountains back there is like a very cool green, almost purpley tone. And I'm looking for the average color, right? On average, what's the color of the shape that I'm trying to paint? And again, I'm using just enough water to let the paint flow. Anything extra will thin out my paint, and I don't want that. So the next lightest color is actually the the floor here, right? The ground. I've got my eyes squinted and I'm just looking very carefully to see what am I seeing, right? There's 100 other colors that kind of go in this section, but on average, this is the color that I'm seeing. There is a cooler area right here that kind of rolls across, and then it goes right along here. And this obviously is gonna dry a lot darker. It's basically one color as I see it going across. And if you guys remember, I brought a spray bottle, is to keep my paint's wet, because this is already starting to dry out. You'll notice that I'm really taking my time with this, right? I'm not racing through it. If that initial design isn't strong, no matter what you do, no matter how much detail you add to it, it's not gonna fix the problem. So coming into the bush right here, it's a much darker tone, distinctly lighter right here, right? It's the kind of the light side. Just trying to pick up some of those darker tones in there. Roll across here. Those trees are very, very light. They pick up just a ton of light, and then they cool down just a little bit. Some darks right there, some darks right there. We can reactivate our color and push it into. And it's time to attack our tree, and that tree is dark. It is so close to us. So brown and blue basically, which will give us almost a black. Just separating light from dark. That's dark kind of going across. So at a certain point it gets a little lighter, but also a little cooler because the light coming in is a very cool light, almost greenish. A lot of these colors won't show up in the photo. It's never the same. You really have to be there in life. This is why people actually go painting outdoors, because the camera just won't pick up the same kind of stuff. Now visually, these were supposed to be the darker ones and these were supposed to be the lighter trees, but I'm intentionally flipping those. If I had to pick only one color for what I'm seeing here, it'd be something like this. And we'll be going across right here. What's interesting about painting outdoors is the lighting will change so quickly on you. It's crazy. So you gotta really move fast. I see a lot of light just coming in right about here and then flowing across. Kind of moves up right through there, and like just a little speck of it, maybe right there. It's like right along through here. So now what I'm focusing on is my lights, my mediums, and my darks in each of these sections that I've painted. I'm using this reactivation process to really get the colors to mix together. We talked about like some darker colors in here, some really great lights in here. There are some darker leaves back here that I think are worth trying to get in. They basically start here. They drop down into this area, kind of overlap and go into here. And finally right here. Scanning one last time to just see, is there anything else that I can put here that really captures lighting? I'm probably gonna finish up the details when I go back to the studio, but in terms of just a simple study outdoors, this is exactly what I need. So if you're interested in getting a PDF of all of the supplies that we use to make these two paintings and that you watched here in the video, you can do so by visiting our website. It's raminfardart.com, or just simply click the link down below in the descriptions. The first thing I usually look for is the horizon line. Then what I see in the background are some mountains that I can barely make out. There's all these trees and stuff that kind of go over it. But again, keep it simple. I'm not too concerned with getting this a clean, solid mass since so much of it is going to be covered. So I'm going nice and light up here, up top. Cerulean has a little bit of that green in there, which is always really nice. And I'm going to attempt to do all of this using a big fat brush. And I actually recommend it. It's both frustrating and freeing. The tree's huge back there. Seeing something like that, long shadow going across. Another tree type object here. Barely make out what that is. Some more trees here. A massive tree right along here. And right now, my only concern is shape. I'm not worried about anything else. Great, cool colors here. And my concern is just design. There's like a tiny tree here. I'm not sure if I want that in there. It doesn't feel like it'll keep the eye rolling around. Switch over to a number 2. Getting some lighting in there, off yonder. And then way up front, over here. So I'm trying to get some of these deeper tones in here. A lot going on with that tree. But the key is to simplify it. And then towards the center is like way darker colors. Some really, really deep tone. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there's some warm tone right there. Almost disappears. Right about there. One that's kind of behind it, it's a little lighter. That might even be too light. Let's add a little dark. There we are. Just a little bit more dark in there. And I do see like a bush right here that is not a bad idea just to indicate. I like the idea of darkening that corner, which pulls your eye over towards this area. And towards the center, there's some really cool light. Man, there's some dark colors in here. Brutally dark. Some really interesting kind of cooler tones around here, especially because it's that late afternoon lighting with those long shadows. Just trying to get some of that in there. And I may even adjust the color in the background because the green does feel a little bit overwhelming. Bring in a little bit of that almost pinkish tone back here. People want to skip this phase. It's just such a bad idea to skip all of this. There's so much to learn here. Picking up some of these lights right here. It's just a few. This bush is really interesting with the lights that it picks up. And you know, there's a little bit of dark right in this patchy area. There we go. So 2 separate studies, not focused too much on detail. I'm just trying to get color, shape, and value right. If I want to, I can always detail this later. But for the most part, I have everything that I need to take it back to the studio and finalize it. All right, let's go. So you may be wondering, well, is that it? Is that as far as we go with these paintings? Yes, for a beginner, absolutely. There's zero detail here. Our only focus is on shape, color, value, and edge. The details come later. In fact, I would argue that if you're able to make a successful painting such as this one or this one as a study, then your next step is to use a much larger canvas and put your details into that larger canvas. This right here does its job in terms of truly understanding your composition, your color, your values, all of the things that are involved in the basic format of a painting. The rest is just dressing, and that's when you get your details in. So you'll do that on a much larger scale painting. So I highly recommend these. I have my students do it. They are unhappy when they first find out that that's what they need to do first, but they always thank me afterwards. So do these studies. They're going to make a difference. I want to thank you guys again for watching. I wish you luck on your journey. Please share with me what you're struggling with, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Everything that has to do with
this box, which has nothing in it.
yeah, I'm getting eaten by bugs, maybe 4 times more.
The trash can?
Yes, the trash can. Let's paint the trash can. Why not?
Don't forget your Baja Blast.